Morgan Estabrook. I'm chairing the conference, and I'm here to introduce Greg Wright, who is Communications Manager for AICPA. He has more than 10 years of experience in communications and marketing, including social media and blogging. We've been tweeting, so you'll see he's G_J_W, SEO, and content creation and curation. Greg currently serves as the editor and manager of AICPA Insights and resident SEO expert. He has an MBA in marketing and does SEO consulting. So welcome, Greg.
Thank you very much. And hi, everybody. So real quick, I have a tendency to talk fairly loudly, so I'm not going to necessarily stand near the mic, but if you need me to speak up or if I start mumbling for some reason, just wave or throw something and I'll stop. I want to preface this with I don't think I'm going to get too technical, and actually just kind of a show of hands, does anybody consider themselves an expert in SEO, search engine optimization? Okay. If you were, I was going to ask you to come up and help. Anybody here kind of intermediate level? You've toyed around with search engine optimization, but kind of want some pointers? And how about beginners? Somebody added it to your job description, or you just kind of want to know more? Great. So because most of you are beginners and we have some intermediates, this should be we'll keep it fairly high level. I promise I won't get too technical. There's actually, you'll see there's some stars that I put in throughout the presentation that kind of highlight some tips that are on the more expert side. So you'd want to approach those with caution. And I'm going to try not to walk in front of the projector. I like to move around a lot, so I've kind of limited my movement, so I apologize for that. But what I want to do is I want to start out and I want to go back in time to, actually let's talk about an overview. It's always helpful if you remember what slides you have. So this is kind of what we're going to look at today. We're going to do a little bit of SEO basics. We're going to talk a little technical. We're going to talk about the importance of content marketing. We're going to talk a little bit about local SEO, and there's slight differences. Some other extra tips you need to do if you're working as a very local or city or even state organization. And then we're going to talk about some cool tools that are available for you to use to help with your search engine optimization. So now I want to go back in time. I want to go back to 1994 when Yahoo, and this is the homepage of Yahoo back in 1994, was the #1 search engine. In fact, it was pretty much, well, it wasn't the only search engine on the market, but it was one of the few search engines available. Everybody went to Yahoo, and the idea behind the search engine was we have this great World Wide Web that everybody's starting to use. These web pages are being developed. How are you going to find your web page? How is somebody going to find your web page about Buffy the Vampire Slayer? How is somebody going to find your web page about, the Air Force or what have you? So Yahoo was around 1994. A few years later, Google came in. And Google, of course, as you know now, is the largest search engine provider out there. They provide, they've gone beyond, of course, search engines. There's, they have a mobile platform as well as a million other projects they're working on, from Google Glass to the driverless car. This was their homepage back in 1996. As you can see, not too much has really changed. Their logo's changed quite a bit. Well, somewhat a bit, but still very plain, very basic. And the reason I'm showing you this is because I want you to understand kind of the importance that search engines have played in today's world. Today, while Google dominates the market, there's a lot of, it's gone so much farther than beyond being kind of a tech world. Google now kind of sets the standard for what search engine optimization is. In fact, Google's become such a big name, it's very household, and it appears everywhere in pop culture. So I'd like to start out with a little video. This is from Confessions of a Shopaholic, and I hope you guys can hear it.
I wanted 1,000 words on APRs from an angle.
Is that not an angle?
Not unless you call head-on an angle.
No, I don't.
Try it again. Remind me why I hired you.
Okay.
Rebecca, did you just type good angles on APRs into Google?
Yes. I Googled.
So even now, I mean, Google's even a verb now, which is kind of, it's fascinating from a brand standpoint. But besides that, the idea behind that is, you know, you can Google and find anything now. And the objective that you have, of course, is as being a nonprofit, is you want users to find your stuff, your content, your resources, your website. So I want to take a quick look at what the search engine market looks like, because it's not all about Google. Google, of course, according to ComScore, has 67.6% of the market share of search engine traffic. That is the highest it's ever been for Google. Bing, owned by Microsoft, which is a relatively recent comer to the search engine world, has 18.7% of the market. That is also the highest it's ever been for Bing. Yahoo, on the other hand, which was one of the first companies into search engines, is down at 10%. And that's actually the lowest it's ever been for Yahoo. And I share this information just because we're going to focus a lot on Google and what Google does. But it's important to realize that Bing and Yahoo and the other search engines that are out there, like Ask Jeeves and so on, while they have a much smaller share of the market, they're still important to make sure that you're aware of where you and your website appear within those search engines. So now I want to go into the future and talk just a little bit about the future of search engines, because that has a big impact on what you do today and how you're going to change your website or change what you do. If you're a Star Trek fan, you may recognize this image. If you're not, then you won't recognize it. This is the Star Trek computer. Essentially, this is a screen display that is integrated into the Star Trek computer. I was at South by Southwest a year or so ago, and the senior VP of search for Google, Amit Singhal, was interviewed. And one of the first questions he was asked was, what does the future of search look like? And that's what he said, Star Trek computer. He wants Google to be able to provide you, the user, with one answer, the correct answer, the best answer. So as we go through this presentation, I want you to think about that. Because while you currently get a list of results, there's really, those results are ranked. Which is the best answer, which is the worst answer. And Google just wants to give the user the best answer. So that's something to think about. The other piece to this is something that Thomas Cott talked a little bit about yesterday, Google Now, and that predictive search, being able to predict what a user is going to want at a certain time. And that's kind of the idea behind Google Now. I'm not going to go into Google Now, though, but I could do a whole presentation of Google Now. So this is a search engine result page, or SERP, as we call it in the industry. In addition to loving technology and search engines, I also love Broadway musicals. And Here Lies Love is my new favorite obsession. So if you're in New York, go see it. But this is your typical search engine result page, right? You've got what your keyword up in the top left. You've got your search engine result. Of course, this is Google. And at the very top, you have an ad, and it's lovely labeled ad even. Only 6% of people who go to a search engine result page click on an ad. Just letting you know as information. Something we could do a whole session on PPC ads, which I won't do, but you could. The rest of that page are the other results. 53% of users click on the first result on the first page of the search engine results. That's astonishing. So if we take this for example, the first page, so Here Lies Love is written by David Byrne of Talking Heads and Fatboy Slim. So now you really want to go see it. What's fascinating to me here is that David Byrne's personal page is actually outranking the show page, which is number 2. But think about that. 53% of the people who are looking for Here Lies Love end up clicking on David Byrne's personal page, which is not really promoting the show, but a story about how he developed the show. The show, by the way, is about Imelda Marcos, the First Lady of the Philippines. It's really awesome. Okay, I'll stop plugging the show now. Tell me more. Yeah. Should we do a presentation on here like that? So what's interesting, though, is that when you go to page 2 or beyond, less than 1% of people click on a result after page 1. So not only is it incredibly important that you're on page 1, it's important you're number 1 on page 1. And that's what search engine optimization is that we're trying to get your web page, your website ranked higher on Google or on Bing or Yahoo so that more users are going to find your site, they're going to find your information, maybe they'll donate, maybe they'll become a member, or they'll just download information, share that information with their friends. That's ultimately what we're trying to get to. So I just kind of said that. That's what SEO is. The big problem is, with search engine optimization, of course, is that you want people to find your content. But Google and the search engines, they only want to show great content. They don't want to show some spammy, ad-filled website that's slow to load and doesn't provide the user with information. They want great content, great websites. Unfortunately, there's not a book that Google produced and said, here's how we do it. Here's how you can write great content and have a great website. A lot of it's really guessing. It's, all right, well, we see, a lot of these folks in the back and they're data mining and they're coming up, well, we're seeing that, all of a sudden on such and such day, websites that we're talking about payday loans all of a sudden start falling in their rankings. It's really hard to find out, and so we leave that to really much smarter people than I, to be honest. But there's no answers. Search engines, very high level, will say, we'll write great content, and then people will come. Unfortunately, it's not Field of Dreams. It's not that easy. And they're constantly changing their search algorithms because they want to deliver better results to their users. And how else are you going to get people to keep coming back to your search engine? By giving the users what they want. So, take an example of kind of another search engine result page. I just searched for disability insurance resources. And I just kind of want to show kind of this idea. I specifically searched for this term because the Council for Disability Awareness is one of the terms that is used a lot in finding their website. And as you can see, they ranked number 2nd in here. So it's actually really good because the guy who's ranking number 1 actually has disability insurance resource in the title of their page, title of their homepage. So we'll get into a little bit more about that. But I just wanted to show this as an example because all of these people on this page are and I know a lot of people don't like to use this word, but are competitors. They're all competing for that coveted number 1 spot. So they might be your friends. You might do a lot of work with the Disability Insurance Resource Center, but they're also competing with you. So I'm with the American Institute of CPAs. We have they're not part of the AICPA, but each state has a state CPA society. We're always switching places with state CPA societies on search engine rankings over various different keywords and topics because we compete on that level. On the search engine level, you're competing with them. So I just kind of want to share that because there is some competition there. So let's get down to search engine optimization, why you really came here, and what all of this means and what you can do to improve your search engine results. This is the SEO Pyramid, and it's from Moz.com, M-O-Z.com. They used to be known as SEO Moz, and now it's just Moz. They have a lot of really great free resources, so I'd encourage you to check them out. And actually, I will be, if you see me tweeting during this session, I kind of schedule some tweets to go out. And so one of them is actually to a blog post that talks, or a video that talks all about the SEO Pyramid. It's a few years old, and I should also take this time to mention, as I notice people writing stuff down, I will, at the end of this session, I'll be tweeting out a link to the presentation so you can download the entire link. It's also going to be up on SlideShare, and I'll give you that URL so you don't have to furiously write. But I do want to walk through each of these kind of pieces. Now, the reason it's a pyramid, of course, is because with a pyramid you need a good solid base. And for search engine optimization, a good solid base is great content. And so these are kind of the different pieces, and we're actually going to walk through all of them. So we talk about accessible quality content. Now you might remember earlier I mentioned about the stars. These stars indicate a little bit more expert advance. So if you're not comfortable when I go through them, don't worry about them. They're not the end of the world. Everything with search engine optimization, what you get down to it is you can do it or you cannot do it. It's hard to say. For example, a sitemap. So a sitemap is basically exactly what it sounds like. It's a map to your website. It lists out all of the different URLs and pages that are within your website. Submitting a sitemap to Google or to Yahoo or to Bing is not going to make you number one for your whatever search term you're trying to get found for. But it does help. And it does help Google crawl your website a little bit faster. But if you don't do a sitemap, it's not going to kill your website. These are all little things that you can do that will help in the long run. So let me back up. Let me talk about domain authority real quick. Everybody's website, of course, you have a domain name, aicpa.org. Maybe yours is like airforce.gov. Every domain is assigned a ranking, essentially by Google and the search engines. And that ranking determines your authority in the web space. So if you work for a university, you have .edu, or you work for the government, .gov, you guys are in heaven, because .govs and .edus are the most valued domain extensions out there that are available. You're considered a high authority, very high trusted, great expertise in whatever area you do. So to a large extent, if you have a .edu or .gov, you will very easily outrank other websites that are working towards your content, or if you're working against the same search terms. On the flip side to that is, if you link to other websites, people want you to link to their website. So for example, the Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics, links to aicpa.org because we're the foremost authority on CPAs. So when they talk about accounting and becoming an accountant, they link to our site. That's great for aicpa.org, because if the Bureau of Labor Statistics is linking to our site, that gives us link juice, as we like to call it. It just kind of it gives us more authority and power within the search engines. So that's domain authority. You can get greater authority by more people linking to you. You can get greater authority by proving that you are an expert in your space through Google, through the search engine eyes. Sitemaps, we kind of talked about that already. Again, you can submit your sitemap to Google or Bing and Yahoo. It will help a little bit more in their crawl. Broken links. If you have broken links on your website, fix them. Or don't create them. Don't make broken links. Don't delete. I mean, you can, but if you're going to delete a page, make sure that if you have any other pages pointing to that, you clean it up. Redirect it. Google will rank you down. If you have broken links, they will rank down your page. They will rank down your site. If other people from outside your organization, from outside your website, are linking to content on your website that's broken, Google's not going to rank you down too much over it, but you should reach out to that other organization and ask them to update their link, because that's just going to continue to help you. Yeah?
Remind me, isn't there a tool or a few tools out there that will help you search for broken links online?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my favorite tools for that is called Screaming Frog. It's a free download. I believe it's screamingfrog.org. Or if you just screaming as in yeah, Screaming Frog. And if you just Google Screaming Frog, it will come up. But I'm pretty sure it's screamingfrog.org. It's actually a company based out of the UK, but you can download their software for free, and it will crawl your site up to, I think, 500 pages for free. And it will give you a list of broken links. It'll actually also create a sitemap for you. So 2 birds with 1 stone. They also offer a paid version that goes for more. And then there are other, of course, paid services out there that will also do that. There's another tool, Google Webmaster Tools, which I actually have on the very end, which is free to sign up with, will actually also examine your site for broken links. So that's another one. We don't really have any experts in the room, so based on my polling earlier, which was very scientific. So these two I'm not going to go really too much into detail with. Robots text essentially resides on your server and tells the robots or the web crawlers, the search engines, what pages they should or should not go to. Definitely leave that for an expert. Talk to your IT team about it. There's a whole lot of stuff you can do with the robots text. The main thing is you just want to make sure that if you have the robots text, that you're allowing the search engines to search your site. Yeah?
So is it not safe to assume that, like, if you hire an outside firm to build you, like, a Drupal or WordPress site, that this isn't all included? Do you have to, like, specifically say, hey, put in this stuff?
If they also do search engine optimization, then I would hope that they are doing a lot of these tools. If you just hire a web designer, they're more than likely not going to do this. Some of this they may, just out of common practice, but if they don't specifically say SEO or search engine optimization, I don't know necessarily that they will be inclined to do that. Another big thing with search engine optimization in general is duplicate content. Google really doesn't like to see, as an example, a blog post on AICPA.org and then the same exact blog post on New Jersey CPA's website. It's duplicate. They don't know which one's legit. You can use this little rel canonical, and again, that's really kind of an expert piece. And you can, if you even just Google that rel canonical, you'll get a whole bunch of information about it and how to use it. Again, just be really careful. The idea behind it is when you use this tag, as they call it, you're just identifying which version is the correct real version that Google should look at. Okay, real quick, keyword research and targeting. There's been a lot of talk about keywords, and we'll actually talk about why there's been a lot of talk about keywords later on. Keywords are not as important as they used to be. They're still important. You should still use them. You should still know what your users, what your donors, your members are searching for. And there's a lot of tools out there that can help you with that, and I've got some at the end of the presentation. But know what your keywords are. Know how people are getting to your website. Know why they're getting to your website using those keywords. The worst thing is when you're using a really technical term to describe something, but none of your members or donors, you're using the same term. So they can't find what you're giving them. So make sure you know how they're getting to their site, what those words are you're using. And use those keywords throughout. Don't go extreme and do keyword stuffing, as they call it, where you just use those keywords over and over and over and everywhere. But use it as you would in a normal conversation, as you would if you're writing a normal article. But you can put the keyword in the title tag of the page. You can use the keyword in your I skipped ahead, sorry. Well, you can use the keyword in the title of the page in your H1. That's a very technical term, so if you don't know H1, it's the title, it's the main title of your home page, or of any page, really. You can use the keywords in that page. You can use the keywords in your page title as well. Also, you can use the keyword in your URL. So sometimes when you create a new page, depending on what service you're using, it will default to name the page whatever the title is that you gave it. So that's handy, but sometimes it doesn't. And so you want to make sure that you're using the correct terminology there, the correct terms for it. Some other things you should consider when you are kind of laying your content into your pages is you ask for like meta description or meta title or even titles for the page. Don't use the same title or description for every single page. Or don't use it more than once. Each page should have a unique title and a unique description. This way Google knows they're different, And this way your users know they're different when they're searching through your website. So come up with a different title. If you're the American Institute of CPAs, and that's the title of every single page, nobody's going to know, Google's not going to know what's different about page A and page B. So make sure you're using descriptive titles. But at the same time, keep them short. I know that can be a challenge sometimes. Right now, page title length, the recommended number of characters, including spaces, is less than 60. It used to be 72, and Google changed how search engine results are displayed. They made the titles a little bit bigger font size, so now you have less space to work with. So keep your page titles to less than 60 characters. Yeah?
If you went more than 60 characters, it just means Google doesn't like you as much.
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's hard to say specifically that Google's going to, slap your hand for that. But what ends up happening is if you, let's say I'm going to use the AICPA because this is an easy example for me. But if you say it's American Institute of CPA's financial literacy campaign, right? I don't know how many characters that is, but it sounds pretty long. If you want people to find that page because it's financial literacy, that's all the way at the end of the title tag. So when the search engine result comes up, that financial literacy piece won't be there. They won't see that. So the user won't know that that's what that page is for. So it's important to keep your page titles short but descriptive. Use search-friendly URLs. So I'm sure you've all seen websites that are like aicpa.org/123/ABYZ.html. I don't know what page that is. Nobody knows what page that is. And if you use a search-friendly URL, which would be aicpa.org/hi, my name is Greg, that's more descriptive. Okay? We know who that is. We know that's Greg's page. So don't use auto-generated gobbledygook file names. Use actual search-friendly, term-loaded, careful on the loaded piece, URLs. Another piece, as you guys know, everybody loves images, loves visual content. When you put an image into, if you're building a web page and you put an image into that web page, like in your WYSIWYG editor, a lot of times it's going to ask you for an alt tag or an alternate tag. Essentially the idea is if somebody doesn't want to load images on their website, it at least gives them a description of what that image is. A lot of people skip the alt tag. Don't skip it. It's a great opportunity to use your keyword for that page to assign it to that image. And then you also get the added benefit of it showing up in Google Images for that keyword as well. Yeah?
Should your organization's name be a keyword on every page?
Well, yes and no. I think by default it is, just because arguably your organization's name is the domain name to some extent, and you're going to say your organization's name probably multiple times on the page. So it is a keyword, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily a targeted keyword that you need to worry about incorporating. If you're talking about a specific resource that you offer, free notebooks, for example, I don't know where I get my ideas from. So, but let's say you offer free notebooks, that's kind of, well, maybe not free, but notebooks is a great term you would want to use in that sense, right?
So how do you do a keyword search? Are you talking about just going on like Google Trends and looking things up? Because it's my understanding Google Analytics now won't show you what people are searching for when they go to your site. So.
You're right. And that's why keywords have kind of like fallen out of favor a little bit. Google Trends is a great place, and I apologize. I think every topic in SEO, I think I could do a separate presentation on each of them. Keyword research there's a whole industry around keyword research now. Google Trends is a great place to look. I'm going to show you some other examples, but OpenSiteExplorer.org. You punch in a URL, and it will tell you all the keywords that are they're linked to on your site. It's really cool. OpenSiteExplorer.org. I have a link for it later on as well. But yeah, so keyword importance has gone down a little bit. But it's still important because Google still your users are still going to Google and they're still typing in, Disability Resource Center. And if those aren't the words that you're using, they're not going to find your page because it's not going to come up. Yeah?
What's the best way to change your title tags and metadata? Is that just straight in the code, or could you do it through a sitemap?
Well, you definitely want to do it straight in the code. It really depends on what platform you're using or content management system. Most of those, you can just log in and you can change it. But you'll then, after you change it on the page, you will want to update your sitemap to make sure that those are the same. It may take a while, of course, for Google to acknowledge the fact that they've changed. They do crawl sites very often, but if you're not updating your site all the time, Google kind of adjusts how fast and how often it will crawl your site. I want to talk real quick about link building. Link building can be very dangerous, so tread lightly, if you will. But the idea behind link building is to build up that link juice. So you have link juice and you get it from other websites linking to your content. You can give away link juice by linking to other people. But link building is an important strategy within search engine optimization as long as you use it right. Google does take into consideration the number of people, inbound links, the number of websites that are linking to your website. So that's important. But it also takes into consideration the quality of those links. So if you're looking at a web page that just has a laundry list of links, that's actually going to hurt you. That's not going to help you. You want to make sure that you have quality inbound links. So Bureau of Labor Statistics linking to ASCPA.org, quality inbound link. Whitehouse.gov, that would be a quality inbound link. We're still working on that one. Other great newspapers, publications, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, the Washington Post, any major news outlet are considered very high authority, very high trust within Google and the other search engines. So if you have a story and you can get them to link to your website in the story, that's really going to help out your search engine optimization. Yes?
Do outbound links help you?
Outbound links can help you because it does show that you are part of a community and you're not keeping everybody on your site. The web designer in me and the marketer in me goes, I don't want to send people off my website. I want to keep them there, But there is some value in saying, hey, here's a really cool resource on this other website. It's almost like search engines don't want you to be Midas and I can't think of the word I want to use, hoard all your gold. I could have used a Lord of the Rings reference there. All right. Well, all right. Another big thing here is it's a total big pet peeve of mine. Stop using click here. Don't link click here. Don't say click here for more information and then link click here. Because the anchor text, which is what that's called when you link copy, is anchor text. That anchor text is important. And so if you link click here, nobody knows what click here is. But if you say click here for more information about disability resources, and then you hyperlink disability resources, that's your keyword, and that's shooting link juice to your site and to wherever you're linking to that web page. So it's important that the words you link are as important as the copy on the page you're linking to. So the very top of the SEO pyramid, and I may have mentioned the SEO pyramid is a couple years old. Social is a huge piece of the pyramid now. So while it's at the very top, in my opinion, meaning the most important, but it's also the smallest. So figure that out. But anyway, I feel social is one of the most important things. How many people are on Google+? Okay, a surprising amount. Nobody knows what to do with Google+, and in fact, I will completely tell you that the guy that was the head of Google is no longer at Google. I think he went to Facebook or another company. But so Google doesn't even know what to do with Google+ at this point. They tried this thing with YouTube where they were forcing people to use Google Plus for it was a disaster. But here's the point. Google Plus is owned by Google. Google is the go-to search engine. So if you're not on Google Plus and you're not sharing your content on Google Plus, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. Google is crawling all those Google Plus pages, everything you submit, all of that data is rounded up and affects your ranking. So get on Google Plus. I know you need to have a strategy, totally on board, I get it. But if the strategy is just for, more link juice and more opportunity to share your content, that might be good enough. I don't know. Another cool feature is Google authorship. And this is an example of it, and I apologize to the people in the back, it may be really hard to read. The idea behind Google authorship was to create this group of trusted people who write articles on a regular basis and that can be recognized. So, and you don't have to apply to anything, it's just fill out a bunch of stuff. You can just Google authorship, and it'll come up and tell you what you need to do. It's basically you need to have a Google Plus page, and you have to link it to your blog or your website. The idea behind it, though, is if you can see, and I'm too short to reach up there, but you can see my name. That name links to all the other articles that I've written. And it's a great way to show authority. And Google takes that into consideration in the rankings and will bump you up. It's really helpful if you have a blog. They've changed Google authorship a little bit. It used to be even cooler. It used to have a little headshot, so it stood out in the search results. They got rid of the headshot, and so now it's just that. But it's still cool. You still get extra credit from Google for doing that. Another big thing is make your content shareable. If you have a blog or a website, I'm sure you've got social media share buttons on there. I hope you do, because that also affects your search engine rankings. Getting more people to go to your website, engage with your website, right? That increases your search engine rankings. And we're going to talk about engagement in just a little bit. But if there's two things I want you to take away from this session, it's first, content is king. That's my favorite king. He was 6'4". Most people know of him because of his width, but he was 6'4". That's pretty tall now. That's pretty tall. It was very tall back then. You've heard this before, content's king. What you have on your website is what people are going to find and is going to drive more users, more potential donors, more potential members to your website. So you have to have a content strategy. And so here are some tips, and I hope they don't contradict anything that anybody else has told you today or yesterday or tomorrow. But content is king, and content continues to be king in the eyes of Google. It's incredibly important. You need to know your audience. You need to write good, high-quality content that your users, I'm going to say users, but I mean members, donors, volunteers, whoever, whatever applies to you, that your users come back time and time again to read and take a look at. We're seeing a trend recently that longer content, greater than 700 words, is actually doing better than short form content. It used to be the other way around, and now Google seems to be favoring longer content. So blog posts that are greater than 700 words is pretty cool.
Are they saying what's too long?
No.
Okay.
Well, they're not saying anything.
Okay.
And I think that's important to keep in mind, is that they're not actually saying anything. I think, personally, more than 1,200 words, I think you're going off the deep end. But 700 words, 8, 9 is probably a good size. Frequency of your content, of course, is really important. If you're posting once a month, you can just stop. Because Google is not going to look at your content and go, wow, this is really great. They're going to look at your content and say, well, look, you need to post more often. So it's important that frequency is done properly, or is frequent. Content is frequent, that's what I'm trying to say. Also, new stuff. If you wrote a blog post 4 years ago, it's not going to rank as high as a blog post you wrote yesterday, arguably. Google wants to deliver not just the best content, but the newest content. What has the newest information? And of course, the search engine results are not perfect. I know I search for some weird terms sometimes, and I get stuff from like 4 years ago. I'm like, this is outdated. But if I wrote a blog post today about SEO, it would more likely than outrank that blog post I wrote 2 years ago about SEO. Yeah.
I'm sorry, another question. Can you give a sort of a benchmark for what frequent means?
Yeah, I can try. I think it's different for everybody. I've always been told, for example, if you have a blog, I've always been told frequent content 2 to 3 times a week of posting 2 to 3 times a week is sufficient enough for frequent content. If you're posting every day, multiple times a day, clearly Google knows that you are really involved and really active, and they're going to crawl your site more often, so you're going to have a greater chance. But at the same time, we clearly are not a staff of 1 million, so we're not Mashable or TechCrunch or anything like that, so it's impossible for most of us to post that often. AICPA Insights, which is my blog, well, it's not my blog, it's AICPA's blog, we post 2 to 3 times a week. And I think we rank pretty well, so that's my opinion. But yeah, blogging and news articles are even more important because they know and so everybody in this room, if you're a nonprofit, you're actually ahead of the game already because you're already largely considered an expert in what you do. And so you just need to convince Google of that. And so blogging, talking about whatever your topics are, or if you have news articles, again, if the Wall Street Journal is writing an article about you and you can get them to link to your website, that's really cool, or a particular blog post and whatnot. So the first thing, yeah?
When you said post 2 or 3 times a week, did you mean specifically on your website or in any social media format?
Specifically on your website. Create new content on your website 2 to 3 times a week. I know that sounds crazy to some people and it's not entirely doable, and that's okay. It's not going to be the end of the world. It's not going to kill your search engine optimization. But if you want to optimize to the greatest extent, that's what I would recommend. So the first major thing I wanted you to walk away with is content is king and will continue to be. The second thing, though, is that user experience is queen. That's Queen Latifah. She's my favorite queen. There were other queens I was going to use, but it was just, I don't know. I didn't think it was going to go over well. So user experience is queen, and what do I mean by user experience? Google cares how long your users are on your website. They care how much time they spend there. They care how fast your website loads. They care if a user goes on the website and clicks a Twitter share button. They care about all of that because they want their user, because Google says it's their user. It's not your user, it's their user. Google wants their user, which is their repeat customer, to go to your site and have a wonderful experience so that they'll come back to Google tomorrow and have another wonderful experience. So if your site is really slow to load, Google's going to rank you down. If a user goes to your page and is only there for 22 seconds, Google's not going to be all that pleased. They want content that users are spending, a minute on, a few minutes on. They want your site to load instantaneously. We heard yesterday, was it 2 seconds people expect a website to load in? If you're under, I will tell you, the top tier websites load in less than 30 seconds. Actually, probably less than that now I think about it. But it's important. It's important how fast your site overall loads. It's important how fast each individual page loads. So if you're out there, you're taking photos of your volunteers or your donors, and then you're uploading those photos to a web page, but you're not optimizing the image in the sense of you're uploading a 3 megabyte file and it's taking forever for that image to load, Google and the other search engines will lower the ranking of your site and that page. So it's important that you're optimizing content so that it loads quickly, but it's also high quality, right? Nothing is easy in website optimization. Overall engagement, again, how often people are engaged with your website, very important. Bounce rate, as a definition, bounce rate is when a user goes to your web page and then leaves. They don't go to any other web page on your website. They go to one web page, whatever brought them there, they go there, and then they leave. High bounce rate means that you're not delivering good enough quality content to Google and to your users. So you want your bounce rate to be low.
What's considered a low bounce rate?
That's a great question. I think somebody should Google that. Because I honestly don't know. I will tell you that AI CPA Insights has an 83% bounce rate, and I think that's really high. So it probably should be lower than that. I don't have a good number to give you, sorry. Yeah?
Is responsive design being included now in the algorithms at all?
Well, yes and no. I mean, yes, it is. I mean, it is a consideration. If it means that your site is going to load faster and people are going to interact with it more, then yes, absolutely. Does Google have a specific way of saying it's going to favor responsive over non? I don't think so. That's not come up. But it could. You never know what Google's going to do. And to speak to that point, here are some recent major algorithm updates that Google came out with. I cannot take credit for the image. I found it online. I think it's really cool, though. Panda was, if you hear this, if you're talking with SEO people and they're like, oh, Panda, totally ruined my site. This is what they're talking about. Google releases these kind of algorithm updates every once in a while, and they don't tell anybody they did it, and then people find out about it afterwards when their website fell off the face of the earth. I'm like, what happened? And this is what happened. So Panda came out a few years ago, and there's been different iterations, but the idea behind it is Panda wanted to get rid of duplicate content. If you had a blog post and was on 4 different websites, it was gone. Low quality content. It's really all about quality content. And I know we're starting to run out of time, and I want to make sure I leave enough time for questions, but there's a slide on this that we're going to talk about. Penguin just got rid of link spam. There's a lot of really spammy websites out there that just want people to go to their website to sell advertising. Got rid of a lot of it. Hummingbird was the most recent major update. I don't know why they call them these things. I don't. It's like Apple. Why does Apple make them? I don't know. Whatever. Understand, the idea is that, again, it's that predictive search, that kind of semantic search. Google wants you to treat Google like a human. Google wants you to say, hey, what was the score of last night's baseball game? That's what they want. And Google wants to be able to understand that you were talking about the Yankees and not the Mets. I'm from New York, I apologize. Not for being from New York, but that I use New York examples. And of course, part of Hummingbird was also de-emphasizing keywords as much as they were, which is what you were talking about now. Google Analytics, if you go in there, they replaced keywords with not provided, which is so helpful. But the keywords aren't as available as they used to be. But they're still important, like we were talking. Okay, this is what I wanted to get to. This is like, I apologize at the end because I feel like it's the most important. Eat. So you might be surprised to know that there are humans that work at Google. It's not all robots. And those humans actually visit your website and they read your content. Google has a huge team of quality content raters. And they go through your content and they decide, wow, this is really awesome, or this is horrible. And every once in a while, one of those raters gets irate and secretly releases the playbook. And so very recently, within the last, I believe, month, one of these secret playbooks came out and identified what it is that these quality content raters are now looking at. And it's most easily summed up by EAT, which is expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. The idea behind this is Google wants your website to, in order to be number one, you must be an expert in what you do, you must have authority in what you do, and you must be trustworthy. I mean, as you all are here in this room, a nonprofit, you're already probably there, right? Or at least halfway there. But that's what Google wants. Google wants to show content from people that are trustworthy and experts in their field. There is something to be said about, those WebMD forums or other type of forums that are those kind of self-help places where you go and as a person you give information on, what this medical problem might look like or how to save money for college. There's something to be said for that, and those still are factored into search results. But ultimately, being an expert, being authoritative, being trustworthy. 3 huge things that Google is looking for now. Here are some things that you can do that we found out from the playbook that these content raters are actually rating you on. So if you have a lot of ads on your website, which I don't think I haven't looked at all of your websites, so I can't say, but you don't. But if you had a lot of ads, the raters are going to rank your website down. They're looking for good supplemental content. So if you have video, YouTube, owned by Google, YouTube videos, images, infographics, other resources that are available, if you match that up with your content, that's great, because Google wants that, because that's more information, that's more knowledge, that's more expertise that a user will see. Things to watch out for: poor page design. And some of those things include pop-ups. Don't do it. Ads incorrectly categorized. Have you ever been reading a news article and all of a sudden it looks like somebody pasted a paragraph in the middle of the article? It didn't make any sense, and it turns out it was an ad? Yeah, that's what they're talking about. Don't do that. Don't put ads in places that they shouldn't be. Inline advertising. If you ever notice, it looks like a hyperlink. You're reading something and it's blue and it's underlined and it looks like a hyperlink, but then you mouse over it and an ad comes up. That's inline advertising. Don't do it. Google doesn't like it anymore. I don't know if they ever really liked it, but now they're telling people they don't like it. The last thing, we actually heard about this yesterday. I think Tom Cott talked about it. About Us. Have an About Us page. Have contact information. Google wants that. It shows your authority. It shows your expertise. And as we know from yesterday, people look for it. Okay, a few other additional steps. We started a little late, so I'm going to kind of somewhat speed through these. Other things you should look at when you're looking to dominate search engine optimization. Image search is really helpful, really important. Google Images is where I get half my images. But really important that you're optimizing your images and they're showing up in Google search. That's only going to help your search rankings. Video search, YouTube, which is owned by Google, is, I think, the second largest search engine if you consider it a search engine. It's not, but if you did, it's the second largest behind Google. Google News. If you can get in Google News, tell me how. I've been trying for 3 years. It's incredibly tough. They really just want journalists and really high-level quality news. So, Wall Street Journal, New York Times. But if you can get your organization's blog, you have to talk more than just about your organization. You have to talk about other things that's going on in the world. But Google News is really cool. Really give you a lot of link juice. Local SEO, I'm going to do a really, really quick local SEO. Structured content, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but rating. See those stars and the rating? That's structured content. It's basically the idea is there's extra code so that you're presenting a very cool-looking search engine result that's going to draw your eye. Great movie, by the way. Okay, local SEO. Really quick, again, you can download this presentation, and I'll be around afterwards if you want to ask questions. It's just like your regular search engine optimization, and this really applies does anybody here work for like a local charity or within the state or city? Okay, so this is for you guys. Name, address, and phone on every single web page. It can be down in the footer. That's okay. It's got to be there. You don't have to make it 24 font. You don't have to make it 1, but somewhere reasonable. Every single page. That just helps Google know. They're like kids. You just keep driving home the same information to them. If you're finding some trouble showing up in searches for your city or your state, consider putting your city and state in your title tags on your pages. That will really boost it up. It may be like, oh, disaster resources for New Jersey. And you'd be like, that sounds weird. But it's really going to help you out. Use Schema, which was on the previous slide, schema.org, which is that structured content. I encourage you to check it out because there's a lot of stuff for local search engine optimization that's done through Schema. It's definitely Yext is a great resource, yext.com. Essentially, you go there and you enter, it will search all these different, I don't know what you call them, like local place data hoarders, like Foursquare and MapQuest and Yelp and so on, and Google Places. And it will search all of them for your information. And then it will show you if it's consistent, which is important, or not. But you can also then use it to submit your information and your website to all these other searches. There's a paid, you can only get somebody for free, and then you have to pay, but do the free ones at least. They're like the most important. But it's really cool. And it's really important that you're consistent in the name of your organization. And I mean from consistent, not just, American Institute of CPAs, Inc. Well, if that's the name of your organization, then use it. But don't do AICPA, and then American Institute of CPAs, and then American Institute of CPAs, Inc. Because Google just thinks those are 3 different places. So it's important to be consistent. Same goes for your address and phone number. Those are the 3 big things that Google looks at. Name, address, phone number when we're talking about local SEO. Yes, Google knows what area codes go where. So real quick, common SEO mistakes. Please put your audience first. They're the most important piece to all of this because that's why they're coming to your site for a reason, and you want them to stay. Search engine optimization is only a piece of the puzzle. We talked about social and the important role that plays, so don't forget that those 2 bullets kind of go together. Don't ignore keywords because they still are important. Don't over-optimize. You can go too far. You can go off the rails and just go way too far and have keywords everywhere. Don't do it. Infrequent content, again, just watch the frequency of which content. And make sure you're identifying duplicate content, not just on your site, but on other people's sites. If they regularly share or steal your content word for word, be careful with that. And make sure you are finding them out and telling them to stop doing that. Okay, free tools. Google Webmaster Tools, really cool. It's free. And basically they give you all these cool resources to find out different, make sure your links are working properly. You can submit sitemaps. You can look at keywords that people are using to find your website to some extent. It's really great. Bing offers their version of it, also really great. Google Analytics is a free analytics package. If you're not using it, it's like the best analytics package in the world. Check it out. It also gives you keywords. It also will tell you how fast your site is. It'll actually give you stats on structured content, Google authorship. It's all there. It's really easy to set up. SEMrush, we were talking about keyword research before, SEMrush.com. Great way to research keywords and find out what people are using for your content. We talked about OpenSiteExplorer.org before. This last one on the bottom, which is really long, and I apologize, they don't have a short one. We were talking about how the title, Google has changed the size of titles on their search result page. If you go here, it will actually give you an example of what your title would look like on the search engine result page. So you can see if your title's too long, because it's not an exact science. I said, what did I say, under 50? I think that's what I said. 60, thank you. If that is not always the case, because some letters are bigger than others, and so if you can use that, and that's cool. I'll give that to you. I'm done. You can tweet me on Twitter. This presentation, which will be tweeted out momentarily, you can actually download it right now on slideshare.net/Daspian, which is my alter ego. And you can also check out YouTube. I will likely be making this into a video. I don't know yet. Probably. So you could probably find that video on YouTube as well. And Well, thank you all. You're free to go. And again, feel free. You're more welcome to download the presentation. If you have any questions, I'm going to hang out